You added it to the cart, saw the total, and felt the familiar tightening. And then the option appeared at checkout for payments, 0 interest, starting in 2 weeks, and something in your chest loosened. The number that felt like too much became 4 numbers that each felt like nothing. You clicked confirm, the thing is on its way. And the version of you that just agreed to pay for it for separate times is already somewhere in the future, waiting. That moment, that specific loosening. That is not a feature they accidentally included, that is the product. Not the item you bought, not the payment plan, the feeling. The engineered dissolution of the friction that was supposed to make you pause. And if you felt it more than once, if the confirm button has gotten easier each time, the design is working on you in ways that are worth understanding before the next checkout screen. Let's go back a few months. Think about what your finances actually look like on a Tuesday in the middle of the month. Not the beginning, when the paycheck just landed and everything feels manageable. The middle, when the rent has cleared and the car payment has cleared and the various subscriptions have done their quiet work. And you're looking at a number that is fine but not comfortable. Fine meaning it covers what's left, not comfortable meaning there's no real margin. And in that context, in that specific financial texture of most months for most people, a $280 purchase feels different than for payments of $70. It's the same money, your brain does not process it that way. This isn't a character flaw, this is documented neuroscience. When payment is deferred and divided, the part of your brain associated with loss registers a meaningfully reduced signal. The purchase feels less costly because the pain of paying is distributed across time and fragmented into pieces, each small enough to feel inconsequential. You are not weak for responding to this. You are human. And the people who designed the checkout flow knew exactly what they were designing for. And what happens next is the part most people miss. Because the individual purchase is almost never where it gets expensive. The $280 is often defensible. Genuinely needed or genuinely wanted at a fair price, the math on one plan is usually fine. It's what happens to your relationship with purchasing when every transaction above a certain size has this option available. When the friction is gone not just once but categorically. When the mental category of I can't afford this right now gets quietly replaced by I can afford for payments of this right now, which is a sentence that can be applied to almost anything, which means almost anything becomes purchasable, which means the natural gate between wanting and buying has been removed. Think about the past year. How many active payment plans have you had running at any given moment? If the answer is more than one, you already know what I'm describing. The cognitive overhead of tracking multiple due dates across multiple platforms, each one pulling from your account on a slightly different schedule, each one a small but real commitment of future income before you knew what else that income might need to do. The month were to plans pulled on the same week as an unexpected expense and the account went thin. The low-level financial anxiety that isn't about any one purchase but about the aggregate of commitments that seemed reasonable one at a time and became complicated together. That aggregate, that's the product working at scale. Nobody taught you to add up what you owe across all open plans at any given moment. Nobody showed you what your real monthly obligation looked like when every active split payment was included. The apps don't show you that number. Each plan lives in its own interface, isolated from the others, each one looking manageable in isolation, together constituting a picture you've never been shown. You were too busy confirming purchases to see the pattern. And the pattern is the point. Here's what nobody tells you about money. The buy now, pay later industry is not a lending business that also generates transaction fees. It is a consumer behavior modification business that also offers lending. The entire infrastructure, the checkout integration, the instant approval, the 0% framing, the clean app interface, the split payment UI was built to change how you behave at the moment of purchase, not to serve your financial well-being. To increase your purchasing, those are different goals that occasionally overlap and frequently don't. The merchant pays a fee of between 2 and 8% of transaction value to offer this at checkout. They pay it because it works. Cart abandonment drops, order values increase. The conversion rate on purchases that would have been abandoned goes up significantly when the option is present. The merchant recovers the fee through increased volume. You are the mechanism through which the merchant converts more. You are not the customer. You are the product the merchant is buying when they pay the platform fee. The wealthy don't think about installment payment options the way you were taught to think about them. The people who build real financial momentum have made a prior decision about their money before they reach the checkout screen. Not a budget in the traditional sense, not a spreadsheet with categories they'll abandon in 3 weeks. A prior commitment. This dollar is already spoken for. It goes to the investment account or the specific goal or the deliberate category. And when a purchase arises that isn't in the prior commitment, the question isn't how to make the payment smaller. The question is whether this purchase should happen at all. And the buy now, pay later offer doesn't answer that question. It avoids it. That avoidance is comfortable. It is also expensive. Let me tell you about a woman named Camille. 33, earns solidly, not irresponsible by any standard she's aware of. Started using one split payment service for a single large purchase 2 years ago. Today she has 4 different platforms on her phone, each one used for a different category of purchase, each one selected because it was the option presented at checkout. She has, at this exact moment, 9 active payment plans running simultaneously. She knows this because she checked when she started wondering why the account always felt tighter than it should. 9 plans ranging from $25 bi-weekly to $180 monthly. Combined future obligation, $1,340 already committed before she makes a single discretionary choice this month. Camille did not make 9 bad decisions. She made 9 decisions that each felt fine. The aggregate is what she was never shown. She is not unusual. She is the median buy now, pay later user 2 years into the product. But there's something darker underneath this. Because Camille's story is about the visible version of the problem, the stacked obligations, the account tightening, the cognitive overhead. The invisible version is what she isn't doing with that $1,340 per month. Not dramatically. She was never saving all of it, but some of it. Some portion of $1,340 per month pointed at the investment account that exists but receives inconsistent contributions, compounded over the years ahead, is a number that changes the shape of her future. Not in a marginal way, in a structural way. And that number is currently being converted, month by month, into the residual value of 9 purchases, most of which she could not, right now, specifically name. The 0% interest offer absorbed money that would otherwise have been building. That's the real rate, not the APR, the building rate. What that money could have become, here's the first principle. The friction was there for a reason, and removing it cost you more than the fees would have. The common belief is that payment friction is a problem to be solved. Faster checkout, fewer steps, stored payment info, one-click purchase, all of this is framed as convenience, as user experience improvement, as progress. And in a narrow, transactional sense, it is. Each individual checkout is faster, but the friction was performing a function beyond inconvenience. It was creating the gap between impulse and action. The walk to the ATM, the manual card entry. The moment where the full price had to be visually confirmed before the payment processed. Each of those small frictions was a decision point. And decision points are where you protect yourself from decisions you'll regret. When every friction is removed, every impulse becomes an action. And the accumulated cost of impulses turned actions over months and years is not a convenience fee. It's the difference between the financial life you have and then the one you would have built if the gaps had stayed. The identity shift is from I manage my payments responsibly to I make deliberate purchase decisions before I reach the checkout screen. Those are different people. The first person is reactive. managing the consequences of decisions already made. The second person is proactive. The purchase decision happens before the payment option matters. And the second person is not at the mercy of whatever the checkout screen offers. And what happens next is the part most people miss. Here's the second principle. Late fees and the penalty structure are not a bug in the 0% model, they are a feature. The 0% offer is real, conditional on perfect execution in a payment environment specifically designed to make perfect execution difficult. Debit-linked payments pulling on fixed dates regardless of your pay schedule. Multiple plans with overlapping pull windows. No overdraft buffer the way a credit card provides. And when the execution isn't perfect, when the account is $40 short on a pull date because something else cleared first, the fee structure activates. Late fees, return payment fees. In longer-term products, retroactive interest calculated from the original purchase date that can push the effective rate into territory you would never have agreed to upfront. The 0% headline was the acquisition tool. The penalty structure is the revenue tool. And the payment architecture, debit-linked, fixed date, no grace period, was built to generate friction at the payment stage after all the friction had been removed at the purchase stage. You were made frictionless as a beer so that you would commit. Then the friction returned as a fee structure designed to extract from the commitment. There's a man named Jerome. Bought electronics on a 5-payment 0% plan, set up auto debit. On the fourth payment, his account ran short by $52 because a medical bill cleared the same week. Payment failed, he didn't catch it for 4 days. By the time he made the manual payment, the late fee was applied and his standing with the platform flagged. He paid $34 more than the purchase price for a transaction that was marketed as free to finance. Jerome did nothing wrong except allow imperfect timing in an account that didn't have the margin to absorb it. The product has no tolerance for imperfect execution. Most people's finances require occasional imperfect execution. That mismatch is not accidental. This is where it gets interesting. Here's the third principle. Convenience that costs you money is not convenience. It is consumption infrastructure. The app is clean, the interface is frictionless. The approval is instant, the repayment is automatic. Everything about the buy now, pay later experience is designed to feel neutral, like a tool, like infrastructure, like something that simply facilitates transactions without influencing them. And that neutrality feeling is the most sophisticated part of the design. Because a tool that influences your behavior at the point of highest vulnerability, the moment of desire, before reflection, when the item is in the cart and the checkout button is right there, is not neutral. It is interventional. It is in that moment changing the probability that you make the purchase. And changing that probability is its entire commercial purpose. The convenience is real, the influence is also real. And the combination, genuine ease masking genuine behavior modification, is what makes buy now, pay later more effective than any previous consumer credit product at extracting money from people who believe they are making independent choices. You were not making an independent choice, you were making a choice inside an architecture that was built to produce that specific choice. Knowing that changes nothing about the past purchases. It changes everything about the next one. Here's the uncomfortable truth. You have been in checkout screens across multiple platforms over however many months, converting your future income into present consumption at a rate that was never shown to you clearly. The total is real. The opportunity cost of the total is also real. And the version of that money that compounds in an account rather than disappears into purchases, the number is not trivial. It is years of working that you may or may not have needed to work. Options in your 40s that depend on decisions being made now, at checkout, into seconds, with a button that makes it easy to say yes before you finish asking whether yes is right. The purchases aren't all wrong. Some of them were correct decisions made at a price you genuinely could afford. But the pattern, the aggregate of commitments, the stacked obligations, the consistent conversion of future income into current consumption, The pattern is worth examining with the same seriousness you'd bring to any other subscription that turned out to be more expensive than it appeared. Project it forward. If the split payment infrastructure has elevated your monthly spending by even $300, a conservative estimate for someone with multiple active plans, that $300 per month redirected to an investment account over 10 years at historical returns is somewhere between $55,000 and $65,000. That's not a lifestyle adjustment. That's a decade of deliberate building versus a decade of managed consuming. And the consuming produced things that are largely gone. The building produces the number that changes what your future looks like. 5 years from now, the payment plans will be paid off and forgotten. The question is what was built in their place, or whether anything was. So here's where you are. 2 paths, and they both start at the next checkout screen. The first path is continuation. The apps stay on the phone. The next large purchase gets the 4-payment option. The account stays tight in the predictable way that tight accounts stay tight when future income is committed in advance. The individual decisions keep feeling reasonable. The aggregate keeps being invisible. The investment account keeps receiving whatever's left, which is usually less than it should be, compounded forward into a retirement picture that's functional, but not what you actually wanted when you imagined where you'd be. The second path requires you to make the decision before the cart, not a rigid rule, not deprivation. A prior commitment about what the money is for, established before the checkout screen offers to make desire easy. It requires reintroducing the friction deliberately, not because friction is virtuous, but because friction is the gap where real decisions happen. The 4-payment option will still be there. The question is whether you need it, or whether it just makes it easier to say yes before the better question gets asked. The better question is not whether you can afford for payments of $70. The better question is what for payments of $70 costs you in the thing you're actually trying to build. That question doesn't have a button. That's the point.